welcome to Brain X here at Ramada Kelowna. Coming up, we're going to hear from some of the most inspired thinkers in the field as they share some powerful insights into brain injury.
I want to say thank you to each of you that came out here today because you want to understand brain injury. I want to say thank you to the speakers that were brave enough to come up here and to share their stories and to share insights. It's a life's work. Magda has helped me write this out, so I wouldn't skip or miss. I'm going to read it to you. My story, it's something I have been successfully avoiding for 11 years. In my mind, it's the equivalent of digging up a gravesite long after a burial. The pain that comes with going back in time and reliving it is uncomfortable and sometimes overwhelming. The guilt that comes with knowing that those closest to me had to watch as I was one day completely normal, and then how I'd become a social introvert, preferring to cope with the pain in the total darkness of my room, where even the smallest sounds aggravated me and made me feel like I was losing my mind. I faced anxiety going out anywhere in public. All the time, people that clearly knew me, they would come up to me and say hello and they had no place in my memory bank. I would call my mom crying because I'd come out of an appointment and I couldn't remember how I got there. Forgetting my car in places and not knowing where it was or how to find it would unravel me. So many things I went through and simply chose not to talk about, but rather carry the burden and download my frustration on those closest to me. But making this video that you saw changed everything. I have found that carrying my story was becoming as painful as telling it. And with each day that went by, I wondered if one victim of traumatic brain injury would feel less alone or have hope by hearing my story. I know that I'm lucky to be alive. After being hit by a truck that sent my body flying 30 feet from point of impact, I've heard the diaries that my mother kept, and I think to myself, how is that even possible? That's not me. A girl who wanted to die, but only because the pain was so great. You see, the real problem with brain injury is how you cannot see it. Bones mend and scars heal. But an injury brain is unlike anything else I've ever dealt with. The biggest struggle that I face day in, day out is memory. I look desperately for patterns in it, why some things in my memories store but others don't. Quite often, I will only know and repeat memories based on what someone else has told me. I look at photo albums, family events, and times together, but there's not any memories to go there with them. The most painful part of my brain injury came in a form so disheartening that I do not speak about it. It's the lack of filter that I now seem to have. Sometimes I will look at the diaries my mother kept and think, did that actually come out of my mouth? It was easy for others to identify, but I wasn't able to see my personality had changed in this way. Sometimes now, I'll be in a high-energy room full of people. My brain will be overstimulated, and something will just pop out of my mouth. Generally, I always know I've said something inappropriate, just from that look on my mother's face. Other ways I've changed is that I've overwhelmed easily, sensitive to lights and sounds, and I have struggles doing paperwork, and my brain feels scattered by what seems to be the simplest task that I could do easily before. Prior to injury, I was a nationally ranked BMX athlete, but I had to look at things differently after. I took great pride in doing my serving job at the resort ski hill, but afterwards I couldn't remember orders and was fatigued so easily. I would go home and cry because nothing made sense. Why couldn't I just try harder? Why didn't my brain do what I needed to do? And why couldn't it work the way it used to? After my brain injury, I'd lost my identity. But worse, I'd lost my confidence. Everyone always says that your entire life changes in just a moment. And I always believed that that happened to the other guy. I could have never been so wrong. I was left with the feeling that nobody knew what having a traumatic brain injury is like, and that was so frustrating. Yet there's 1.5 million Canadians, as you've heard all day long, in Canada, that are struggling with something as simple as filling out paperwork, just like I do. After injury, my first goal was to be able to take a walk for 1 kilometer. I had to keep trying because in the beginning, my attempts ended with me alongside the road in tears, calling my mom to pick me up because the pain was too great. I continued to pursue that goal until I could walk the entire 8 kilometers to town. It was not pain-free, but the feeling of fulfillment that came from doing something that was a goal made the pain more bearable. I'm here to tell you, it does not matter how small your goal is. Just start somewhere. Now I have so much physical energy that I often direct it into everything to compensate for a toll that a few minutes of paperwork will take. As everyone who has experienced brain injury knows, they simply want their old life back. My moment of clarity came a few years after my injury. I was holding out hope for some miracle, that somehow, some way, someone was going to help me get my old life back. I realized abruptly that no one was ever going to do that, and I was going to be solely responsible for changing my view on things, and that they would never be the same as they used to be. Through the support of my family and friends, I gradually let go of the notion, and I replaced it with an acceptance of who I was at present and what I am good at. Physical activity has been one of my greatest coping mechanisms. In 2010, I discovered running. In the beginning, I struggled so much because it jostled my neck, and often I'd end up with an ice pack after a run. Gradually, my neck muscles grew stronger, and I managed the pain, but persevered. In 2010 and 2014, I competed in over 100 short and long distance races, ranging from 5 to 80 kilometers at a time. I find that my pain flares up more when I am not active, and I realize that physical activity, being my greatest strength, will be part of my pain management program the rest of my life. It was in 2014 that I was sitting having dinner with a friend, and he asked me, "Have you ever considered doing a triathlon?" I didn't even know what was involved in a triathlon at the time, and he had only talked about the grueling Ironman event. But he never mentioned that there was actually another race, shorter distance, for beginner triathletes. Before he left my place, he gave me the Challenge Penticton website, and that evening I went on and signed up for Challenge Penticton Iron Distance. I didn't have a wetsuit or a tri-bike or half a clue what I was actually doing, and I had less than 4 months to prepare. In that case, the lack of thought processes I'd attained from my brain injury worked in my favor, because in a normal state of mind, had I truly thought things over, I may never have signed up. That said, I do believe that where there's a will, there is a way. I got a bike and the equipment needed. I took up swimming 15 years after swimming lessons. I had never been on a tri-bike prior to this because all my biking experience had entailed a 30-second sprint around a BMX track. The 3 months that I had left flew by. Race day, August 2014, and once again, I really didn't have an expectation of what that day would look like. I just wanted to finish before the 17-hour cutoff. I finished in 14 hours and 7 minutes, 12th out of 22 in my age group. I was ecstatic. Ironically, the run part of the race, which I had expected to be my strongest leg, which was the activity I was most familiar with, it turned out to be the most challenging, as it was cooking hot and I had forced myself just to keep moving. I ended up walking half of the race, but I still beat my goal by 3 hours. It left me firmly believing that we are capable of so much more than we think that we are. Triathlon number 1 was done. The next year, I suckered my dear father, who was almost 60 at the time, into doing his first and last Ironman distance race. It was not long after that, in 2016, that I heard about what was called a double anvil. It's a double Ironman distance. I tackled it, and after finishing, went on to do the quintuple in Virginia. Hence a slippery slope from there on out. As you saw in the video, I have completed 2 DECA ultra triathlons. The total combined distance, swimming, running, and biking, of 4,520 kilometers. As well as that over from Kelowna to Mexico. Some interesting things. We women like calories. You're gonna like this part. Some interesting facts from those experiences that you might enjoy are, in the equivalent of 11.18 days it took me to complete the first of the 2 DECAs, I burned the equivalent calories of 143 slices of New York cheesecake and 42 large cheese pizzas combined. Although DECA triathlons may not be for everyone, I can only hope that each of you today will in some way be motivated like I have, feeling gratitude for what you can do, and finding something that you can focus on your strengths. To date, in 2018, I have covered 210 kilometers of running races alone. Starting in July, I am taking on the equivalent of 25 Ironmans over the course of 4 races in under 4 months representing Canada, including a DECA in Switzerland and the first ever DECA to be held in the US in New Orleans, as well as a double and a triple Ironman. I believe wholeheartedly that true satisfaction lies in breaking your own barriers and pushing ourselves when we are most uncomfortable. There is no growth in the flat paved highway. We do not grow without challenges or when we are most comfortable. I want to say thank you to my speaker sponsor, Nixon Wagner, as well as Magda, for having patience with me to write this all out. My mother and father sitting right there. They've been my support through everything. In closing, I leave you with this short clip, and it asks you, what's stopping you?
That's all from us here at the Brain X Symposium. If you'd like more information on any of today's topics, you can head over to Brain Trust Canada's website. I'm your host, Lucy Hayeswood. Until next time, this is Shore TV.